For all of you who are here with us in person today, for all of you who are watching us online, let's just start by taking a deep breath. Let's all take a deep breath. Inhale and exhale. Just let that all hang out there. Feels good. We are in episode 2 of our series on breathing room, where we've been talking about how we can clear out the clutter of our overloaded lives and find a little bit of breathing room. And one of the things that we said last week in our last episode when we started our series is that we said that in our attempt to get the most out of life, we actually lose control of our lives. And many of you have emailed in, texted me, have sent messages to me on social media and said, man, Pastor Caesar, that message was exactly for me. That is exactly where I am in my life right now. That I have this sense that in the hurry and the busyness of our overcrowded life, that we are missing out on the most important things in life. And maybe like you like me, you caught a case of hurry sickness like I did last year. Maybe last year you didn't get everything that you exactly thought that you wanted. Maybe you started a successful business, but you never got around to investing time in your marriage. Maybe you finally got your kids into their dream school, but you forgot to teach them the ways of Jesus and how to be a follower of Jesus. Maybe you were able to finally finish every episode of the new Game of Thrones and the new Lord of the Rings, but never learned to read the Bible or to spend time in prayer. Maybe you made a lot of money this last year, but you never grew rich in the things that matter. Because the things that matter aren't even really things. They're relationships. And so we find ourselves in this situation, in the situation that the culture has built around us, and it's hard to find breathing room. And I think that the biggest challenge of doing that, of finding a little bit of breathing room in our lives today, is that we live in a world filled with digital distraction. In fact, for those of you who are here with us together today in person, I'll bet you that in the last 30 minutes, your phone has buzzed or your wrist has buzzed because of something coming in, a notification, a text message, a phone call. For those of you who are watching us online, you might be watching right now on that device. And I've noticed for me that when the phone starts ringing and dinging, I start swiping and scrolling. It becomes almost automatic. And when we do that, what happens is that it fragments our mind and it actually damages our soul. You know, we're living in a very interesting moment in history right now, and a moment of incredible technological acceleration. Economists tell us that 2007 is going to be a pivot point for our generation. Do you know what came out in 2007? The iPhone. Steve Jobs released the iPhone and it completely changed the landscape. In fact, the iPhone was released, and then 3 months later, this program, this online portal called Facebook was available to anybody who had an email address. A few months after that, this microblog started that you might know today as Twitter. The App Store, all opened up in 2007. And historians will write, they tell us right now, that 2007 is going to be the official start of the digital age. And for some of us, we just can't imagine that, because how many of you can remember a world without Wi-Fi? Can you remember that? How many of you still remember dial-up? How many of you remember what it was like to not have a device at the end of our hand all the time? Where it's basically now an extension of our hand. The world has been radically reshaped in just a few short years. And in many ways, it's been a blessing. We have this device in our hand that's not really a phone anymore. It's actually a very, very powerful microcomputer. And we use it to get information. We use it to get song lyrics. We use it for maps so that we know where we're going. But it's also been a curse, because we know that it's highly addictive, that our devices fragment our focus. They erode our capacity to concentrate. And when we can't concentrate, we can't think clearly, and we can't love deeply. Last week I mentioned that I had read, actually on my third reading of the book, The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry by John Mark Comer. And I want to thank him because a lot of the content of this series is based on what he wrote in that book. I've been giving that book out to many of the leaders in our church because I know how important it was for me. I'm hoping it was important for you too. But he cites an amazing statistic in his book. Can you guess how many times the average smartphone user touches their phone every day? 200? 300? No. 617. No. 2,617 times the average smartphone user touches their phone every day. Texting, emailing, scrolling through Instagram, posting on Facebook, Candy Crush, 2,617 times every day. Unbelievable. Now listen, if you are a millennial, the number doubles. It's over 5,200 times a day. We scroll, we click, we post, we like, and it becomes almost automatic. We don't even think about it. And because we don't even think about it, we don't see the time that we're losing, and we don't see what it's doing to our brains. Because these devices, as great as they are, as many benefits there are to them, were actually designed for distraction and addiction. That's how they're designed. Do you know why? It's easy. It's money. We used to talk about how we lived in a gig economy when Lyft and Uber started coming out and people were just paying directly for services to people. But today, what we live in is what they call now a attention economy. The more that they can get us glued to our screen, the more that our eyes stay focused on our screens, the more we come back over and over again, the more money they make. I was reading a great interview where they interviewed Sean Parker. I don't know if you know who he is. He was the very first president of Facebook. And so listen to what he wrote about this idea. Listen, he said, God only knows what it's doing to our children's brains. The thought process that went into building these applications, Facebook being the first of them, was all about how do we consume as much of your time and conscious attention as possible. And that means that we need to sort of give you a little dopamine hit every once in a while because someone liked or commented on a photo or a post or whatever. And then it's going to get you to contribute more content, and that's going to get you more likes and comments. It's a social validation feedback loop. Exactly the kind of thing that a hacker like myself would come up with because you're exploiting a vulnerability in human psychology. Now, isn't that disturbing? This thing that we hold in our hands that we keep with us 24 hours a day is actually designed to exploit your brain's tendency to be easily distracted. And so it's no surprise that our attention span has been dropping every year. You know that in the year 2000, before there were iPhones, before there was internet, before there was one-click shopping on Amazon, the average attention span of a person was 12 seconds. 12 seconds. Not a lot to start with. Do you know what it is in 2023? The average attention span of a person? It's 8.25 seconds. Now, to give you a little bit of perspective, a goldfish, their attention span is 9 seconds. We are losing to goldfish. And even now there are stories coming out of Silicon Valley where there are tech executives who are paying a lot of money to send their kids to schools that specifically take away, do not use any devices. They don't use any technology except for education. No other technology is allowed. They know, the people who are inside, they know what it is doing to their kids' brains. And so they're keeping their own kids away from it. In fact, Comer cites or talks about how the rapper Biggie Smalls, in one of his songs, he gives this advice to the other crack dealers. He says, never get high on your own supply. The tech executives in the Silicon Valley, they understand that. It's time that we get that too. The effects of digital distraction are catastrophic to your soul. It destroys your ability to concentrate. And so we wonder why sitting still and actually praying or reading the scriptures or meditating on the Word of God is so hard. Well, of course it's so hard. Our willpower stands no chance against the never-ending scroll of social media. Now, if you think you're the exception, then prove it. Turn off your phone. Take it out and turn it off. Unless you're watching us on your phone, then do this afterwards. But if you were sitting here with us in person today, I dare you to take your phone out and just power it off, and let's see if we can survive. I want to challenge you to do this. Let's start a digital detox right now and see if you can resist the urge to not turn it on at least until the end of the evening, until after dinner, or maybe all for the rest of the weekend. You know, the psychologists have now classified our relationships to our devices as compulsive behavior. It's addiction. We can't resist it. We can't resist pulling out our phone and checking for a text message or reading our email or seeing what's happening on Facebook or what someone has posted on Instagram. We just want to do one more post, one more text, one more thing. And what it's doing to our soul is catastrophic, especially if you're a follower of Jesus, because it destroys our ability to be present with God, to be present with each other, to see and to appreciate all that is good and beautiful and true in the world. In fact, what I would say is that the noise of the world will make you deaf to the voice of God. So if that's the case, then how do we do it? How do we get a deep spiritual life with Jesus when we have the attention span that is less than a goldfish? How do we sit still long enough to pray, to read? How do we sit still long enough to listen for the Holy Spirit when right next to us is this digital dopamine dispenser that keeps screaming at us and dinging at us and pinging at us, and in an instant we can pick it up and get an instant pick-me-up? Instant like, instant comment, instantly. And our ability to concentrate, focus on anything of real importance, that's just left by the wayside. So what I want to do today is I want to teach you a spiritual practice of Jesus that will give you a little bit of breathing room. That will give us a chance to step away from our screens, to step away from the hustle and bustle of living here in the 2023 Bay Area or wherever it is that you live, where we can actually settle our souls and thrive where we are. And that practice that I want to teach you today is called silence and solitude. Silence and solitude. It was the number one habit of Jesus that kept him connected to his Father. It was his secret source of power for his life and for his ministry. And listen, if Jesus needed it every day, then what more do you and I need it? In fact, I would argue that this particular practice of Jesus, of silence and solitude, is vital for your soul's survival, especially if you live here in the busy, noisy, distraction-filled Bay Area. So when we look at the scriptures, we see this, that there's an account of Jesus' life where Jesus is about to start his public ministry. And a man named Matthew records what happens. And listen to what Matthew writes. He says, after his baptism, this is Jesus' baptism, as Jesus came up out of the water, the heavens were opened, and he saw the Spirit of God descending like a dove and settling on him. And a voice from heaven said, "This is my dearly loved Son, who brings me great joy." Isn't that awesome? Wouldn't you just love to hear the voice of God looking down at you and saying that you are dearly loved and you bring me great joy? But listen, immediately after this, listen to what happens. Matthew writes that then, right after this, then Jesus was led by the Spirit into the wilderness to be tempted there by the devil. For 40 days and 40 nights he fasted and became very hungry. Now, when we think of that word wilderness, we think of wilderness in the Middle East, we think of desert, we think of dry, hot, sand, a lot of sand. That's what we think of. But actually that word wilderness is the Greek word eremos. And eremos means desert. Yeah, that makes sense. But it also means deserted place or lonely place, or I like this one, the quiet place. The eremos is the quiet place. Now, isn't it strange? Not that Jesus was hungry, because, he didn't eat for 40 days. I mean, some of us, we can't stand not eating for 40 minutes. So that's not the strange part. But first he's baptized. He hears God, the Father's voice saying that you bring me great joy. And then immediately the Spirit leads him out into the wilderness to be tempted by the devil. Right at the very beginning of his public ministry. Now we're used to, good guy versus bad guy stories, but usually the big fight comes at the end. This one is right at the beginning. So why? Why does this happen? Why does it happen right at the beginning? Why does it happen in the desert? Why does he have to be alone? Why is it after 40 days of fasting and prayer where Jesus is weak and hungry? Now listen, I've always thought that the reason that this happened is because that's how the devil does it. The devil waits until you and I are weak and hungry and hangry, and that's when he comes at us. But that's not what Matthew is saying here. See, the eremos is not a place of weakness. The eremos is a place of secret strength. It's a place of Jesus' strength. The eremos was the place where Jesus received the divine strength that he needed, not just to resist the devil, but to beat the devil, to defeat him. And that is exactly what Jesus did. Jesus went into the eremos over and over again for strength. Later on, Jesus, he's back now from the wilderness, and it's his first day on the job. Right? It's a Saturday, he's at the temple, he's preaching and teaching, which is what he normally did on a Saturday. Then later that night, he went to Peter's house for supper. While he was there, he healed Peter's mother-in-law. And then after they were eating, that there was a crowd that started to come to Peter's house. Some people were there for healing. Some people were there to have demons cast out of a loved one. And then there was a big, huge crowd of people who just wanted to watch all of this happen. I mean, we think that our days are busy. Jesus was exhausted. And so the next morning, what does Jesus do? Well, I'll tell you what he didn't do. He didn't do what you and I would do after a long, busy day and night, the night before. You know what we would do? We would sleep in, right? We'd say, okay, guys, meet me at IHOP and we'll have a late pancake breakfast. We'll have brunch together, right? Or listen, I don't want to do anything today. I'm so tired. I think I'm just going to Netflix and nap. That's not what Jesus did. Even though Jesus earned the right to be able to relax a little bit, listen to what he did. He says, before daybreak the next morning, Jesus got up and went out to an isolated place to pray. Now guess what is the word for isolated place? That's right, the eremos. Jesus went to the eremos to pray. He goes right back to the eremos to be with his Father. Now think about that. 40 days and nights, he's out in the eremos, he's fasting and he's praying. He beats the devil. The next day, he's up, he's preaching, teaching, healing all day, all late into the evening. And he goes right back after that one day to the eremos. You see, for Jesus, going to the eremos was not a vacation. It was not a spiritual retreat. It was part of his daily spiritual routine. It was part of his rhythm of life. Jesus made space in his life for the silence and the solitude because Jesus knew that the eremos was where he was going to draw his inner strength. But look at what happens next. It says later, Simon and the others went out to find him because we were like, where's Jesus? Where's Jesus? When they found him, they said, everyone's looking for you. You know what they're saying? They're basically saying? Say, Jesus, man, you killed it yesterday. Everybody is talking about all the great stuff that you did. And the crowd is back and they want you. They want an encore presentation. They want you to go out and take a bow. Come on, Jesus, let's go. Listen to what Jesus does. It says, but Jesus replied, we must go on to other towns as well, and I will preach to them too. That is why I came. See, everybody was saying, come on, Jesus, let's do this. And Jesus said, no. He had absolute clarity about where he was supposed to be and what he was supposed to be doing. And even though people kept pressuring him and wanted to hijack his schedule, Jesus was grounded, he was centered, he was not moved. Jesus was focused on his God-given purpose, and Jesus knew what to say yes to, and more importantly, what to say no to. And so if you and I are going to find breathing room in our lives, if we're going to be able to do the same thing as Jesus did, we're going to have to get into the power of the eremos, to find that quiet place where the Father can pour out his divine direction in our lives, both for the long term and also for every single day. Another time, this is recorded by another man named Luke, and Luke writes that the report of Jesus' power spread even faster, and vast crowds came to hear him preach and to be healed of their diseases. But Jesus often withdrew to the wilderness for prayer. Guess what the word for wilderness there is? That's right, it's the eremos. It was part of Jesus' daily routine to step away from the crowds of the people, and he prioritized silence and solitude with his Father. He understood that spending time with the Father was more important than anything. It was more important than food, than fame, than followers. And this is what he did over and over again. And maybe you're listening to us today and you're thinking to yourself, listen, Pastor, that sounds great, but you don't know what kind of life I lead. You know, I'm trying to just make it because I have kids at home with me all day. You don't know my job. I have such a demanding job. You know, my classes are killing me this semester, and I've got finals coming up. I've got a really big deal that I've been working on, and I really need it to close. Listen, I get it. But if Jesus, the Messiah, the Son of God, if he needed time to get into the quiet place every day, then don't you think you and I need that too? So what I want to challenge you today, for us as a church, is I want to challenge us all to start tomorrow, which for us tomorrow would be Sunday, January 15th, to start a 21-day fast. And I want to start doing this with us at the beginning of every year, to spend 21 days in a time of fasting and praying together as a church. But a fast is really just giving up something so that you can be closer to Jesus. And I want us to start doing that. It's an opportunity for us at the beginning of the year to kind of recalibrate our lives, to recenter ourselves, and to make sure that Jesus is at the center of what we do. It'll actually set the spiritual tone for us for the rest of the year. And so today, what I want to teach you to do over these 21 days is to do a digital detox for this 21 days, to create a quiet place, an eremos, every morning, a place where you can receive your strength for the day, just like Jesus. Now, a lot of you've done food detoxes, food cleanses, and you know that we do that to reset our body. Well, a digital detox is to reset your brain. And I want you to join me on a 21-day digital detox. And here are the steps. The first thing is I want to challenge you to turn your smartphone into a dumb phone. Now, I mentioned last week that I did this right before New Year's. And I have to tell you, it's been life-changing. I deleted all of the apps that suck my time away. I deleted all my social media, my email, all of my streaming services, all of the news, all of the sports. I deleted them all. And listen, I allow myself to get onto social media on my computer once a day just to see what's going on in the world. But I know that if I keep it on my phone, it eats up my time and it actually steals my joy. I find that today I'm no longer aimlessly scrolling. I'm not checking it every time it beeps because it doesn't beep anymore. I'm not posting while I'm in the bathroom. Oh, come on, you guys do it too. Before Christmas, my screen time was 6 hours and 37 minutes per day. Now it's down to about an hour and 13 minutes, and most of that is Spotify, listening to podcasts or to music. Listen, if you want to live a distraction-free life, I want to encourage you to give it a try. Delete those apps. Turn off your notifications. Listen, I know it's scary. And you're worried, well, what if something goes on? What happens? What if something important happens? Listen, it's a phone. If something really important happens, people will call you. So I want to ask you, what can you remove from your phone? What apps can you take out from your phone for 3 weeks and survive? To make your phone for utility and not for entertainment. It's going to be different for all of us. For some of you, it might be taking off Instagram or Facebook or TikTok or YouTube or the sports apps or the news apps. For me, it was all of it. I had to take it all out. The second thing I want to do is I want to encourage you to put your phone to bed at night. You know what is the worst possible practice? To keep your phone on your nightstand. I stopped doing this in the middle of last year because I wasn't getting any sleep and the quality of my sleep was really, really bad. Because it's too tempting to have your phone by your side, to stay up late at night, or to wake up in the middle of the night and grab your phone, or to wake up in the morning and the first thing you do is you grab your phone. Statistics say that 75% of adults sleep with their phone right next to them on their nightstand. And of those 75%, 90% of them check it first thing in the morning. Listen, this is a serious spiritual issue. We have to stop letting our phones set our spiritual tone for the day. Because what will happen is that we will overload our brains at the very beginning of the day with fear and envy and anger and outrage, and it will color everything that we see and everything that we do for the rest of the day. So instead, let's detox from that, at least for the next 21 days. And then the third step is this. Let's start our day in the eremos. Let's start our day in the presence of God. Let's open our Bibles and let our phones sleep. Open the Bible, read a chapter, and let's let God's text message set the spiritual tone for the day. If you want to take on this challenge for 21 days, listen, you can combine it with a digital detox, with time in the eremos, in the quiet place, quiet time with God. It won't just detox your brain, it will reboot your soul. Now, in the few minutes that we have left, what I want to do is I want to give you 3 steps, 3 easy steps for having an effective quiet time with God. The first step is this. You have to find your eremos, your quiet place. It could be in your house, it could be out of your house, it could be in your car, it could be at your office. It could be in the bathroom. It doesn't matter. But it has to be a specific place, and it should be a specific time. First thing in the morning is great because it sets the tone for the day. But if you're not a morning person, that's okay. You might find a time later in the day. But just find the time. And all you need is about 15 minutes. Now for me, I'm a little bit slower, so it usually takes me 35, 45 minutes. But 15 minutes is more than enough time. So find where your eremos is, a specific place, a specific time. Then the second thing is that when you first get into your eremos, spend a few minutes settling your soul. When you're in the quiet place, the first thing you have to do is you've got to settle your soul. And listen, this is the hardest thing to do. It sounds simple, but it's not. And I know what you're thinking. Oh, that's great. You're a pastor. Of course, you're going to spend your first few minutes of your day spending time with God. That's what pastors do. I mean, you're so holy. And listen, you don't even know, right? If you knew what was going on in my head at the time when I'm in my quiet place, listen, you would quit this church right now. If you could see an image of the things that were going on in my brain when I first get into my quiet place, you would look at me and you would say, man, that guy has no business teaching anybody anything. Because I'm just like you. My mind is filled with all the internal noise, all the little bits of conversations that I've had throughout the day, the conversations that I have with myself, the images that just pop up into my head, the things that I have to do that I need to get done that I forgot to do yesterday. And so I'm sitting there and my eyes are closed and yet I'm still so distracted. And I want to pray and I just want to say, Lord, thank you for our home. I'm so grateful for this home. Oh, the Niners are at home this weekend. Oh, man, I hope they win, rain. Oh, gosh, there was so much rain this weekend. Now I think I have to pee. Do I have to pee? PQR. Are we going out to dinner tonight? Maybe lunch. We should just go out for lunch. I don't even know what I had for breakfast. Where did I leave my lunch? Did I leave it at the office? The office. Wait, how many seasons were there of The Office? 7, 9, 8? I can't even remember what I ate last night. I mean, this is where my brain goes. Can you relate to that? I think we all can. You know why? Because we're human. And it's normal. Settling our souls is a battle. Sometimes it's just a big game of whack-a-mole. As soon as you try to let one thing go, another one pops up. You start praying and your mind takes off and it's run one random thought after another. You're thinking about this, you're thinking about that, and all of a sudden this lustful thought comes into your head and you start to think to yourself, man, what is wrong with me? Am I a pervert or something? I mean, I'm trying to talk to God here and this is what comes to my brain? We think, Lord, yes, forgive us from our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us, except Joey. Don't forgive him, Lord. Give him the punishment he deserves. Listen, you're not evil when those thoughts come into your head. You're normal. That is the process of our soul trying to settle down. And when we try to quiet our soul, what happens is all the anger and the frustration and the anxiety that has been coming at us so fast in this life that we live is all coming to the surface first, but eventually it will settle down. And you'll see clarity. Your soul needs time to settle for your thoughts and for your mind to be clear. So give your soul the time it needs to settle and clarity will come. You have to be willing to stay in the quiet place long enough and God will settle those thoughts down and He will speak clearly to you. You know, this is Martin Luther King Jr. weekend, the holiday for this weekend. And there's this interesting story about Dr. King. It's 1956 and he found himself at the breaking point. He'd been getting death threats. They're saying he was going to kill his wife, kill his children, and then we're going to kill you. And he really started to feel that pressure. He was getting harassed everywhere. He was thrown in jail because he was doing 30 in a 25-mile-an-hour zone. You know, they were just harassing him. He comes home, more death threats. You know, that night he's fearing for his family's life, for his own life. He couldn't sleep. And so he goes down to his kitchen. He makes himself a cup of coffee. And he was sitting there feeling all this anxiety and stress, and he really didn't know if he could go on. Years later, in a sermon that he preached, he actually talked about this moment. And listen to what he said. He said, "And I bowed down over that cup of coffee. I will never forget. And oh yes, I prayed a prayer, and I prayed out loud that night. I said, Lord, I'm down here trying to do what's right. I think I'm right. I think the cause that we represent is right. But Lord, I must confess that I'm weak now. I'm faltering. I'm losing my courage. And I can't let the people see me like this, because if they see me weak and losing my courage, they will begin to get weak." And it seemed at the moment that I could hear an inner voice saying to me, "Martin Luther, stand up for righteousness. Stand up for justice. Stand up for truth. And lo, I will be with you, even until the end of the world." See, Dr. King, he went into the eremos. He went into his quiet place. And it was like courage was just poured into him. When he went into his quiet place, he gained the strength that he needed, the inner strength that he needed to lead the civil rights movement from that day on. Now, let me ask you this. What if that night Dr. King had an iPhone? What if he brought that iPhone with him and that quiet moment never came? What if he never heard that inner voice? What if he never heard the voice of Jesus saying, stand up, and I will be with you even until the end of the age? What if instead a death threat came to him by text? And so he started forwarding it to all of his friends, letting them know that this is what was going on. Or instead he sat there and he thought, this is a great time for me to make a Facebook post. And so he posted on Facebook, and immediately there were likes and comments, and he was responding to the comments. What if he went on Instagram Live and he started to talk to people about the struggles that he was having and how he was fearing for his life? Maybe asking them how they can help. And maybe he would just be overwhelmed by the whole thing, and he just needed a little bit of a distraction. So he started scrolling through Reels and scrolling through TikTok, or maybe pulled out and tried to win another game of Candy Crush. Would there even have been a civil rights movement if that had happened? Look, you and I, we live in a new and changing world. Digital distraction is normal now. And what I'm asking you as your pastor is that, is there room in your busy, crowded digital life to settle your soul? To hear the voice of God in the quiet silence and solitude? The quiet place where the Holy Spirit speaks to you? Where you won't just hear His love, but you'll feel it too? His words of love and peace and acceptance and reassurance and direction for your life? Spending time in the quiet place will change the trajectory of your life. It will change the trajectory of the life of your family, of your loved ones. Some of you, you're facing major decisions in 2023. What might be hanging in the balance of those decisions in spending time in your quiet place? Imagine what would happen if we decided that we were just going to stick with it, that we were going to lean into the silence and the solitude, that we would embrace the discomfort. You know what would happen if you did that? You'd find clarity. You'd find the distractions of your soul starting to settle. You'll feel faith and hope rising up in you. Just in the quiet place, just say, Jesus, what is it that you want me to see? What is it that you want me to hear? What do you want to say to me? And then the third thing that we do is we meditate on Scripture. I like to read one chapter a day, sometimes two, but one chapter a day is good. If you're looking for a place to start during the 21-day detox, I would recommend the Gospel of John. The book of John is 21 chapters, 21 days. It's perfect. I'm going to start the book of John on the 15th, tomorrow. And so I'll be reading along with you if you want to do that. We'll read one chapter per day. You just read the chapter, find a verse or phrase in that chapter that really speaks to you, and then concentrate on that. And then just let Jesus be the center. Jesus, be the center. Breathe the Holy Spirit in and breathe out your anger. Breathe in love and peace and joy. And breathe out grief and anxiety and pain. And let the truth of God's word settle into your soul. Now look, I understand if you're a little skeptical. That's normal. So was I. I'm just asking you to give it a try. For 3 weeks, every morning, just give it a try. Try it out. Be intentional. Find that quiet place and let Jesus settle your soul. And I wonder how different your life will look at the end of 2023 if you started this year for 21 days, just stepping away from the noise, doing a digital detox, letting your soul settle and hearing the voice of God in the silence, in the solitude. What might Jesus want to be saying to you in the eremos? He's waiting to speak with you. He is. Just pray. Say it while you're there. Jesus, give me clarity, give me direction, give me strength. Tell me, should I make that phone call or should I hold off? Should I hold off on that investment? You'll hear Jesus say, do this with your situation at work. He'll say this to your spouse, say this to your children. He'll say, this is how I want you to handle your in-laws. He'll say, this is how I want you to lead your team at work. He'll say, forgive this person. You'll say, Lord, I can't forgive that person. And he'll say, come to the eremos. I'll give you the strength to do it. Do you need direction for this year? Come to the eremos. Jesus has the answers you're looking for. And he's waiting for you there. Are you ready to step into your eremos? Your quiet place, and let your soul settle and listen? My hope for you for this 2023 is that you are.
Thank you for joining us for this week's message. Gracepoint Church is located in South San Francisco, California. For additional content or to find out more information about Gracepoint Church, visit us online at wearegracepoint.com.